The French Revolution. In 1789, in the wake of early morning, the city of Paris was in a state of alarm. Rumors spread that the king would open fire upon the citizens. People started gathering and they started breaking a number of government buildings in search of arms. The commander of the Bastille was killed in the armed fight and the prisoners were released. People hated the Bastille as it stood for the despotic power of the king. People protested against the high price of bread. A new chain of events began which led to the execution of the king in France. French society during the late 18th century. Louis XVI, in 1774, ascended the throne of France. Financial France was drained because of the war. France, under Louis XVI, helped the 13 American colonies to gain their independence from Britain. Taxes were increased to meet regular expenses, such as the cost of maintaining an army, the court, running government offices or universities. The country of France was divided into 3 estates in the 18th century. The feudal system was part of the society estates dated back to the Middle Ages. 90% of the population was dominated by peasants, but only a small number of them owned the land they cultivated. 60% was owned by nobles, the church and other richer members of the third estate. The clergy and the nobility, members of the first 2 estates, enjoyed certain privileges by birth. These groups of members were exempted from paying taxes and enjoyed feudal privileges. All members of the third estate had to pay taxes to the state, which included a direct tax, called taille, and a number of indirect taxes which were levied on articles of everyday consumption like salt or tobacco. The struggle to survive. Increase in population led to a rapid increase for food grains. Production of grains could not keep pace with the demand, due to which the price of bread rose rapidly. Due to low wages paid to the laborers, the gap between the poor and the rich widened. Things became worse whenever drought or hail reduced the harvest. A growing middle class envisages an end to privileges. Peasants used to participate in revolts against taxes and food scarcity. Group of the third estate had become prosperous and had access to education and new ideas. In the 18th century, new social groups emerged, termed the middle class, who earned their wealth through expanding overseas trade and by manufacturing woolen and silk textiles that were either exported or bought by the richer members of society. The third estate included professions such as lawyers or administrative officials. A person's social position was dependent on their merit. All these groups were educated and believed that no group in society should be privileged by birth. Rather, a person's social position must depend on his merit. A new form of government was proposed by Rousseau based on a social contract between people and their representatives. Similarly, Montesquieu proposed a division of power within the government between the legislative, the executive and the judiciary. In the USA, this model of government was put into force. Louis XVI planned to impose further taxes to meet the expenses. The outbreak of the Revolution. In France, the monarch didn't have the power to impose taxes. They had to call a meeting of the Estates General, a political body to which the 3 estates sent their representatives, to pass proposals for new taxes. Louis XVI, on the 5th of May 1789, called an assembly to pass proposals for new taxes. Representatives from the first and second estates were present, and the third estate was represented by its prosperous and educated members. According to the principle, each estate had 1 vote. But, representatives from the third estate demanded each member would have 1 vote. The demand was rejected, so members of the third estate walked out to protest. They swore not to disperse till a constitution drafted for France that would limit the powers of the monarch. Due to the severe winter, bread price rose and people had to spend hours in long queues. Rumors spread that the lords of the manor hired bands of brigands to destroy the ripe crops. In fear, peasants started looting hoarded grain and burned down documents containing records of manorial dues. Nobles fled from their homes. Louis XVI accorded recognition to the National Assembly and accepted the principle that his powers would from now on be checked by a constitution. The Assembly passed a decree abolishing the feudal system of obligations and taxes on the 4th of August 1789. Tithes were abolished and lands owned by the church were confiscated. France becomes a constitutional monarchy. In 1791, the National Assembly completed the draft of the constitution, and its main object was to limit the powers of the monarch. These powers were now separated and assigned to different institutions: the legislature, executive and judiciary. France became a constitutional monarchy. Citizens voted for a group of electors, who in turn chose the assembly, but unfortunately, not every citizen had the right to vote. Men above 25 years of age who paid taxes equal to at least 3 days of a laborer's wage were entitled to vote. The constitution began with the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. Rights such as the right to life, freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, equality before law, were established as natural and inalienable rights. That is, they belonged to each human being by birth and could not be taken away. Thanks for watching. Do like, share and subscribe.